I welcome you, dear friend, to the Lilium Energy channel, and this video is a guide to creating a simple moving two-wheel platform that you can assemble following the instructions to build the platform. We will need an Arduino Uno, motor driver BTS 7960 2 pieces, TNASCAR potentiometer 2 pieces, power supply. I used a Server 1 power supply from HP with a voltage of 12V with a power of 575W and a current of 47A. Computer power supplies are not suitable due to the fact that they are protected due to sharp jumps in consumption. A temporary solution can be to use a car battery. As a platform engine, I used VA's windshield wiper motors, 2 to 108. They will also be needed in the amount of 2 pieces. It should be noted that not every motor is suitable for our project. The diagram of a suitable motor is shown in the figure on the left. We will also need a universal joint. I advise you to take it assembled along with its shafts. If you are building a steel platform structure, you will need 4 steering rack ends. A simpler solution is to purchase 2 trapezoidal wipers with a windshield wiper motor assembly. The choice of a seat is at your discretion, but you should not overload the design with heavy car seats. You also choose the material for making the platform depending on your budget and your capabilities. Profile steel pipe wooden beams, or in my case, polypropylene pipes. Build, we will also need a 3D printer. Now go to the X Simulator community. Using this link, it is also included in the descriptions. In this community, there are different projects of platforms with many degrees of movement. Specifically, this guide allows you to build a platform based on 2 drivers, Monster Moto Shield and BTS 7960. As practice has shown, Monster Moto Shield is not the most reliable driver, and you need to come up with a radiator for it. BTS is more reliable, and it already has a radiator, so we choose the second driver option. Following this diagram, you will need to solder all the components. But first you will need to modify the engine. Namely, you will need to isolate the negative wire, which is connected to the body, to ground. Since during operation, the polarity on the motor wires changes, and the platform structure is made of conductive materials such as from steel pipes. This can lead to failure. The motor drivers are out of order since they do not work synchronously. We simply take and dismantle all unnecessary wires and components. And here is the connection point with the body. As you can see, The electric motor has 3 brushes. We will use 2 that are opposite to each other. In order to assemble the electric motor, we will need a thread. Install the carbon brushes in the grooves, then pull it together and fix it with thread. Tie the remaining part of the thread to the protruding parts of the case or glue it with tape. I designed a case to house electronic components neatly and aesthetically, and this case will need to be printed on a 3D printer. To cool the drivers and electronic components, we will also need a cooler measuring ATX 80 mm. The Chinese Arduino uses the CH341 controller for connecting via USB, and in order for it to be recognized by the computer, you need to install the CH341 driver. The driver can be downloaded on Alex's website, Guyver link in the description. We also need to download the program for development on the Arduino platform, depending on your capabilities and generosity of soul. You can support the Arduino IDE developers or download the program absolutely free. Now we return to the X Simulator community site, to our guide to creating our platform, and download the latest version of the sketch for Arduino. Arduino, open the sketch in the Arduino IDE program that we downloaded earlier. This sketch has two modifications. Modification 1, this is for the Monster Moto Shield, and Modification 2 for our BTS 7960 driver. Change Modification 1 to Modification 2 by simply deleting the 1 and entering a 2 in this line. And then connect our Arduino to the computer. Select the COM port. In our case, it is a USB port. From the list, select Arduino and then press the arrow to the right. This is a recording of the sketch on our Arduino. Now we will need to assemble and debug the motor with a potentiometer. To do this, we will need to connect the Arduino to the computer and connect the motor driver to the power supply. Be careful when connecting the wires. Do not mix up the polarities. An error of reversed polarities can lead to damage to the driver. After connecting, the motor will begin to rotate. Place the potentiometer handle opposite the motor shaft in one axis. As is done in the video, when rotating the potentiometer handle, the shaft should rotate in the other direction. If the direction of rotation of the motor coincides with the direction of rotation of the potentiometer, reverse the polarities on the motor contacts or on the potentiometer contacts. An important point is that if after all the connections the motor does not respond to your rotation of the potentiometer knob, set the potentiometer knob to the middle position and restart the system. The fact is that the developer, in order to prevent the potentiometer from turning and thus avoid its breakdown, introduced an emergency limitation that completely turns off the engine if the potentiometer reaches these values, and these limitations are in these lines. Now, we will need to print the mounting of the potentiometer on the motor. STL files for printing are in the folder link in the description. In my opinion, in order to avoid errors in assembly, it is better to assemble the motor and potentiometer while running system. To do this, set the potentiometer to the middle position until motor it stops or rotates very slowly. Install the adapter nut between the engine and the potentiometer so that the crank, the moment of connection with the potentiometer, is in the middle position. If you did everything correctly, the engine itself will align the middle position, if after setting the rotation has not stopped. This means you need to change the polarities on the electric motor or the potentiometer. After assembly is completed, the crank must have a stroke of at least 90 degrees on both sides of rotation. Do the same work with the second motor. In order to read readings from games and turn them into commands that our Arduino-based platform will understand, we will need the SimTools program. Link to the program you can also find in the attachment. We need to download the SimTools 2 program. In my case, it is version 2.6.1. Install the program on the computer. Run the SimTools program game engine. If the program does not open, look in the hidden programs and open it from there. On the left in the menu, select the Axis Assignments item, then in the Axis Type item, select 2D Standard, then press the Presets button and select the SimForce GT item and save all this by clicking on the Save button. The next step is to return to the platform creation guide on the X Simulator website. Here is the data that needs to be entered into the interface settings menu. The COM port is the port your Arduino is connected to, and if you don't know it, you can find it in the Windows Device Manager. An important point: all these values are only suitable for our assembly. Equipment purchased from other developers has different data for operation. After you have entered the data, click the Save button to save the data. The data in Axis Assignments. You can also set the rotation or stroke limits of the crank. Just go to the Output Testing menu and click. Turn on from the retractable menu, select Axis Output A and check for functionality by moving the sliders. If the motors respond to the movement of the sliders, then we have done everything successfully. Then install the test game Life for Speed. This game is the standard for testing gaming platforms. Well, this is also the only game that you can play without purchasing a licensed sim tools. After installing the game, open Sim Tools, Game Engine, and Game Manager. At the moment, Sim Tools Game Manager is not synchronized Sim Tools Game Engine. At the bottom left in the Game Engine program, go to the Tools tab. Another feature of the Sim Tools program is that it does not work without the Internet. More precisely, for the correct operation of this program, after launching it, requires the Internet. After a while, the Internet can be turned off. I assume that this is due to the protection of intellectual property from piracy. In Game Manager, go to the Tools tab and click the Engine IP button. Then enter your IP address from Game Engine. Your IP address is here. Then click Save. Click on the button Tools to hide the menu. Click on the Vibe button and also register our IP. Do the same with the Dock button. Sim Tools by default. There is a plugin life for speed, and now we need to synchronize the plugin with the game that we installed. To do this, click the Patch Game button and indicate the path where we installed the LFS game, namely the folder with the game. Then we agree and click Patch. And in the upper right corner of the Game Manager, the pink square turns green. The Profile Editor tab is a more fine-tuning of the behavior of the platform in the game, and at this stage of development, we do not need it, since it will complicate the assembly process. After everything we've done, we are ready to see how our test assembly will behave during the game. To do this, connect the Arduino to the computer, to the port that you defined and saved in SimTools Game Engine. Connect the power supply and motor. Start the Game Engine and Game Manager, launch LFS. To open the game in windowed mode, press Alt+Enter. SimTools Game Engine on the Output Testing tab, go to Virtual Access. Set up the game for keyboard control and enjoy our little victory. And now about the sad thing about how to get a license and take the SimTools program out of demo mode. To do this, go to the SimTools website and select a license based on your capabilities. I, in turn, have not promoted the channel yet, and I can only fantasize about the key. Enter your data, an important point. The key will be sent to you by email in the form of a code, for example, of 12 characters. After you have received your activation key, go to the SimTools folder and find the SimTools registration program. We launch it, and yes, this program will not start if you have the SimTools Game Manager and Game Engine active. In the lines that appear, enter your email address to which you received the key, and in the bottom line, enter the key code and click the Activate button. Further, in order to play other games besides LFS, we will need plugins. Essentially, a plugin is an instruction program, and it is written by the developers for each game separately. Plugins for the third beta version of SimTools can be downloaded from the SimTools website for free. And in our case, you need to download the paid version of the plugins, with a little more games in the community on the X Simulator website, but I'll add a fly in the ointment. And in the attached files, you can find some game plugins for the second version of SimTools. And now about how to install a plugin on SimTools. Launch the SimTools plugin updater, select the downloaded plugins, and simply drag them directly onto the program where the open-end wrench is shown. Then go to SimTools Game Manager and check the installed plugins in the Game Selection menu item. In my case, due to the non-activated demo version of the SimTools program, plugins other than LFS are not displayed. Newly installed plugins will also need to be synchronized with the game, as we did with the LFS plugin via the SimTools Game Manager patch. And now, about how to assemble the platform structure with your own hands. In my opinion, the simplest and most reliable material for construction is wooden beams and planks. They are quite strong and light, but since I am especially gifted among the underdeveloped, I decided to build the platform in a special way and joined the cult. Alex Guyver. Namely, I decided to make a platform out of plumbing fixtures from polypropylene pipes, and this was my mistake, since these pipes do not have sufficient rigidity. And if I were to make a platform now, I would choose 10mm plywood as the construction material. This is the fulcrum of our platform. There are only 3 of them, so in the future, my mother's engineer will suffer and make crutches, because it is this hinge that will take on the weight of the platform and the pilot. Well, or in other words, the player. And for this reason, this universal joint must be firmly fixed to the base of the platform, and at the top of the platform, there are only bends. There should be no rotation around the axis. So, the approximate cost of components for the spring of 2024 is 17,600 rubles. I bought electronics on AliExpress. It cost me 1,300 rubles, universal joint and trapezoidal wipers with electric motor assembly. I bought it from a junkyard for 5,500 rubles. Polypropylene pipes together with connections cost me about 4,500 rubles. I found the chair and power supply on Avito. I also bought a USB cable from Type A to Type B 5M.
Дорогой друг, эта платформа и этот ролик создавались преследуя несколько целей. Первое – это благодарность и мое наследие всем тем творческим людям, которые делятся своими знаниями и тем самым делая мир как минимум прикольным. Я много чему научился благодаря интернету и, конечно же, YouTube. Надеюсь, и тебе поможет этот мой ролик в твоих целях. Вторая цель корыстная – это раскрутка канала и получение дополнительного дохода. И если ты хочешь поддержать канал и ускорить выход новых проектов, обучающих роликов, то я буду благодарен тебе. Подписывайся, впереди еще будет много чего интересного. И если возникнут вопросы, пиши в комментариях, я постараюсь ответить.